Welcome back to the Tandem podcast. This week I have Derek King. How you doing, Derek?
Not bad. How about you?
Not terrible. Besides like all the looting and rioting
Yeah, you
going
going
on like
right? You
right
doing
down
any
the road.
rides tonight after this, or
No, I'm gonna stay home. I'm probably gonna have to go fix the shit tomorrow.
shit?
So
That's terrible.
anyway, how you doing?
Oh, not bad. Just doing a bunch of side jobs, all weekend. So I'm pretty worn out, but
Yeah,
this is a good nightcap, I'd say.
yeah. It's been not too bad. I mowed the lawn. That's about the only big
Oh,
thing
dude, I
today.
knocked that out before 9 a.m. today. I was stoked. Felt like an old man.
So, first question I want to ask you because I think you've probably been around like US drifting for a really long time, or at least like close to inception. So I want to get into like how you got started, and then we can kind of branch out from there.
Right on.
So, how did you get started, and how did you kind of got into what you're kind of doing now?
Um, well, I got started essentially when I was like 15 because I met some older dudes just locally, like at a car spot, and they all were dudes that would autocross or road race or whatnot, and then I like ride around then from like downloading videos on Napster, you know um there'd be like compilations with some like video clips from like old D1 stuff, and I was like, that's sick, those cars are sick. And then cruising the internet, you found like GP Sports like photos of like from their ads. Somehow that was like pictures that would pop up, and there was a black FC and black S13, and I was like, yeah, I'm trying to be that. So um, I got an FC when I was 16, and then did some autocrosses. Got kicked out of autocrosses. They were not too stoked about cars sliding around back then. So
I don't even think they're still stoked about it. They kind of hate
yeah,
that
I'm not
stuff.
sure. I got a lot of buddies that still are very involved with it. I actually ran into one tonight, and
Yeah,
it's
it's
sweet. It's convenient, I guess, to be able to
yeah,
go like down the street and race on a Sunday. It takes, I guess, a lot less uh I guess maybe dedication. I don't know. You don't have to do so much prep,
yeah.
It's
You
just
you can drive
it's
your
more
car to an
it's
event
a lot
and
more casual,
yeah,
so there's dedication there. I guess I shouldn't say that, but it's more casual.
yeah.
So but I started off doing that because it was about the only place you could go do it and get away with it around here. And from there, I think right around then I discovered Drift Indy, and I was like, holy shit, there's people drifting, like trying to do actual events where we can not get kicked out of. So,
What
um,
what year was that about?
I think 2007, I think is when
Okay.
cause maybe 2006 or seven. So I know I was just right out of high school, and I was like trying to get more involved. And like I became a member of Club FR's forum.
Yeah.
And so like I kind of was like dancing around in there, like checking out their stuff, and they were pretty far ahead of most other people, So I browsed that stuff. I was like, okay, Club FR, I'd like to try and check that out. But then right around then is when I discovered the Drift Indie, so got involved with that. It's a bit closer to because Club FR back then they were doing events at like Road America at a go-kart track, and
Yeah.
US Air was just getting involved, I believe, with that. And there was another go-kart track somewhere near, I want to say Joliet, but those were all a little farther than going to Indy. So like, Indy is
Yeah.
what became like home for drifting for me.
Yeah, cuz you're in Fort Wayne.
Yeah, so I'm just 100 miles away from Indy, straight shot down I-69. So it's pretty convenient, and At the
I
time, there was some stuff in Michigan going on, but it was a bit farther, and I didn't. It was kind of, back then you had to like really kind of do your research to figure out where events were and even how to like get in touch
yeah.
with people and know. So
Yeah, there wasn't like Facebook groups or anything like that because well back then there was probably barely even Facebook.
yeah, so it was there was like websites, people had
Yeah.
like US Drift, like they had a guy named Derek Allen was doing events at like a go-kart track called G&J Kartway, which was in middle of nowhere, Ohio. And like I somehow kind of discovered that and went to a couple of those events back then too. And it was just from like a website with a schedule. Like hopefully they're there, like I'll show
Yeah.
up. Hopefully it's still a thing.
God, you just don't see that these days. You just everybody kind of knows what events are where and when, and
Yeah, and there's
it.
so, the information's all over. You just
Yeah,
scroll down your like Instagram feed and it's like you're gonna see, advertisements or, some type of schedule or banner or a lot of your friends getting ready to go. So you're like, oh shit, there's an event next week and I better get my stuff together.
yeah. And were you doing events in the FC?
Yeah, I got a Turbo 2 I bought from Mike Fiak in Indy, and that was my first like real drift car. Like I had another FC that I had in high school, but at the time I thought I was gonna go road racing back then and pretty much like took it fully disassembled it, pretty much ruined it, and so that wasn't ready for drifting. So I bought a T2 from Mike, and pretty much it had I think he just put a Cusco two-way in it, and then I got it, and then I added back then it was Mazda Tricks angle inner spacers that you would screw on, and
Yep.
that was the angle kit for an FC back then, and that was
Yeah,
that was about it. That was the car as far as a drift car goes,
yeah.
and
Because back then, like everything was so limited. There was almost like no R&D, and then if you ever even got stuff, it was usually like imported stuff or used stuff
yeah,
that
you'd
was
have to get on
imported.
like right hand drive Japan, and then like back then you're like, am I gonna get this stuff or like, you don't know who they are or what's going on with it, but
Yeah, it wasn't just readily available like it
and
is
there
today.
wasn't there wasn't knockoff stuff. There was very little information shared from like the OGs in Japan doing stuff. So really, it was like you're a pioneer of almost your own craft of your drift car back then. Like
Yeah.
there were Tyne inner tie rods, with the built-in machine spacer in those, and that was like I remember going to events and it was like, oh, yo, that dude's got Tyne inner tie rods on his car, like sick angle, and like, and that's just back then. That's
That's all you
an
had.
SR20 and like Tyne inner tie rods was like sick, like that was a sick setup, you know.
That's so funny to think about.
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, because nowadays it's just things have made a
Yeah,
turn
and
maybe
like
for the worse. I don't know. Like,
it's so
there,
funny because you go to those like old events back then, or you think about the old events back then, and like it was very little modification. It was very little, uh, just like very stock bodies. Not even what it's like today. I mean, you just had very little R&D, not to mention like parts readily available, and you just kind of just went out there and just drove.
yeah, you just burn tires and like figured out how to drive a underpowered car and keep it sliding essentially. And that's
Yeah,
a lot of kids I think are missing that these days. And I think
yeah, I think
there's
so
just
too.
they need like better mentors, maybe like local guys being better mentors to them, or I don't know,
Yeah.
like because
Well,
these
what
kids
was?
they're not getting seat time. Like
Yeah,
they're building these like insane budget cars and spending I don't know how long, but probably a decent amount of time instead of just like jumping in something that works and just figuring it out from there, and like dudes are building these cars that are damn near undrivable to, you know, amateur
yeah.
type kids. So It's
So
exciting to see kids go into it now with like basic cars and shred. Like I see a couple
yeah,
kids like here and there doing it with like a KA car that's pretty basic and they're out there just chucking it and having a killer time and like they look better than a lot of guys with overpowered cars. And it's
yeah,
like it's exciting to see that, you know, because
yeah.
it's like there's steps to it. Like you gotta walk before you can run. So, you know,
Oh yeah, I definitely feel the exact same way. Like a lot of people go out there thinking that you need like this big overbuilt car, which you really don't. You just need to go out there and drive. Like seat time is king
yeah.
whenever it
I
comes
mean,
to.
it's obviously exciting to drive something that is fast as hell. Like there's no
Yeah.
denying that, you know, but when you can't go out there and like, you know, reliably do a track, you know, track day or a drift event, you know, it's like, man, you're missing out on so much more fun, you know, just
Yeah.
having
Oh
something
yeah.
that's practical.
Yeah. What were the kind of like the first events that you were kind of getting into? Obviously, probably like D days at first, and then
Um, I was I only did a handful of maybe I did like maybe a handful of D days. I did a lot of I think I did like almost all the early Drift Indy events, and I did around that time. There was events in Rockford, Illinois, at Rockford Speedway,
Speedway. Yep.
and those were payout events, and I was drive. That's like a 5 hour drive for me, and at the time, I kind of was doing okay. Like I guess I was more at the pointier end of like driving, I guess, at that time, and my car worked all the time, so that probably had a lot to do with it. So I was just getting laps after laps, and yeah, crazy. A six port turbo rotary was reliable, but but yeah, so I was driving all the way up there,
I think
loading my car with tires and driving through the skyway. Like I don't know where the hell I'm going back then, but just a car full of tires, driving to Rockford and then drifting, trying to win a couple bucks to like, you know, pay for it. And
yeah,
that's like when I met Brian Peter because he'd go to those events
yeah,
and
I think I remember like seeing a photo that was being passed around the internet long or a while back ago. It was like you, Brian Peters, and like Simba,
oh
like
yeah, yeah,
standing in the infield of like there, and it just like it
champagne or
dates
something.
all of
Yeah.
you. It
Yeah, it
just
was
dates.
crazy. It was like you had the S13 with the Sylvia front with like accident sponsor on the side, like kind of, and that's back when like Simba and Eric Wortman, like Grip Gambler purple cars, you know, which
Yeah,
those things were like so nice back then. And they came up and I think judged some of those events actually.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
So what was your like? Or you said the FC was your first car. Did you do like you started competitions in that or?
Yeah, that was like so back then, you know, our the skill level in general was so much, I guess, lower than it is now. And
Yeah.
because it was such like a green sport for the Midwest, I'd say. And so like I remember there was like events that it was I think it was US Drift that would have like down in Jeffersonville, Indiana, and right near Louisville, like across the river. And there would be competitions, but most of them, if I remember, they were just single run competitions, almost
Mm,
like yeah, like a qualifying competition because like back then no one had cages and a lot of places were like the coordinators and tracks they're like no two cars at a time with no safety equipment. So
yeah.
like back then it was I remember some single essentially like qualifying competitions. I remember doing some down there and Drift Indy as well. So that was about it for comps for me back then.
Yeah.
Except Rockfords were tandem comps. So like that was like the first taste of like tandem comps. And I see like some pictures from that stuff and like they were pretty close tandems actually for back then.
For back then. Hmm.
Yeah. It seemed like
That
fairly pretty good. I mean, this, at least in the still photos that I've seen, and there's some old videos as well, and it's kind of like I think we just were so like hungry back then that like we were driving the wheels off the things and like didn't care that much maybe.
Yeah. Were most of the you said that most of the tracks that you guys went to back then were kind of just were mainly circle tracks and a couple like go-kart tracks, or is it
Yeah,
like
there was some. So like we drove at Speedrome in Indy a lot, which was literally like I think it's like the figure eight capital of the world or something is what they call it. But it's like a really small circle track and it's completely asphalt, like the whole infield and everything. So
wow.
yeah. And so like that was small, but it was a circle track. But the layouts were like they got kind of like technical in a way because there was no choice because it was so small. Jeffersonville was a circle track, but there was like a X to the infield, so like not miserably, boring.
Yeah.
Rockford was pretty, I guess, boring, but the banks were like crazy steep, so it was
Yeah,
kind of exciting. It was kind of terrifying, really.
that's the
But
weird thing. Like I've drove because I'm from Rockford and I've drove like that track a few times. You could like go as fast as you could possibly go and just chuck into those banks and like just
yeah,
pin it and you'll
it
be
was
fine.
yeah, it was interesting, I guess. Like, but it was just like I mean, I remember in my FC, I was, running like 15s in the back, like stock pizza cutters, and like I would run that in third gear in that car, and it was like kind of scary because like you were hauling ass,
Yeah.
and
It's
that I
it's
mean
a
I
fast
saw it kill
track.
some cars. Like I mean I saw quite a few cars get killed there, and like it was violent, like pretty
Yeah,
scary
and
crashes.
that place I do know that if you like get close to the wall and start getting into it, it takes you into the wall. Like that
Yeah,
place is bad because there's some spots in
yeah.
that track that are just messed up, and it's an old track, just like a lot of those circle tracks that've been around for years.
All right. Hopefully that solves that problem.
All right.
All right. My bad.
Oh, that's fine. Trying to remember where I left off.
Are they doing events there still at Rockford?
Occasionally, I don't. Usually, there's like one like event that's put on by one of the local places, but
Yeah. Pretty much
I
like
haven't.
probably shit show.
Oh, it's yeah. We usually just go out there. When me and Chaz used to go drive, it used to just be us just terrorizing like for at least like 3 or 4 minutes, and then we're just
Yeah.
like, all right, we're done, and just take
Yeah, I
off.
remember we did some demos the night before the drift event and there was like it was like a full house for like the races there.
Oh
And
yeah,
it was
they
sweet.
get
If I remember there was always like bands playing like on the at the grandstands, like there's a bar or something, I think.
yeah. When we went one time, we went and did an exhibition, and we were we went up and we were between what was it? We were supposed to go after the guy that jumps a car through a trailer. And we're
Okay.
like, we're not gonna go after that because there's gonna be a bunch of shit on the
Shit
fucking
everywhere,
track.
yeah. Yeah.
And then at the end of the night, I think they had a trailer race. So
Okay. Sick. That's wild.
yeah. But getting back into it, what kind of like obviously you've had a ton of different cars because we could probably talk for 2 hours on the cars that you've had. Um, After the FC, what did you kind of go through?
Um, I had gotten another FC, like an NA one, and I did a few events with that. Um, Nothing really. I did a couple of those go-kart track events. I did a one of the like the earlier street life tours I did with that car. I don't think I did too well. Or like no, a massive like storm came through and like blew shit all over the place. And also I don't think I qualified too well. And then that was about the end of that car. But then after that was when I got the S13 the sparkly purple one that I did like the D1 USA stuff and like the pro am at Irwindale and stuff with that car.
Oh no shit. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I remember seeing you at what was it? It was it was at
Hot
Soldier
import
Field.
nights maybe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hot import nights. Yeah, I was kind of like doing like I was trying to hammer a bunch of like more serious comps with that. It was you know, I was just that was a thing to do at the time for me. Like I was just hungry to go kind of compete against people and
Yeah, back then there wasn't really what it is today, like the team drifting stuff and the kind of the party events that you kind of go to weren't really a thing. It was either like competitions or like D days.
yeah, it was like Nope and you know the D1 GP USA and like there was there was another one. I can't remember what the series was called. But there was a lot of like actually kind of higher level comps back then. And so like that was kind of what I was trying to do, but it just was barely feasible with like a full-time job and like shitty budget. So
Yeah,
it
because
was like I would do what I could, and I don't even when I look back, I'm like, how the hell did I afford to do all the traveling I was doing? But you know, it was work, ramen noodles, and finding random people to like lend me their truck and trailer and all sorts of shit like that. It was just it was kind of absurd and off the wall.
that's kind of crazy because that's like the weird thing like back then is because your program was like a truck, a trailer, your car, and like a few tires. And like
Yeah, like
that's
a whole shit load of Sport Max wheels and like literally like tires off BMW takeoffs from a dealership. Like that was my
yeah.
program.
So, um, getting more into your cars, you had the S13 for a while. What was kind of the next step after that?
Um,
Because
well,
obviously, like with you're driving, it kind of goes through what cars that you've been getting too.
yeah.
Because
After that, so I went to Pro Am Nationals at Irwindale at the end of that year, and I got my pro license. And so I was like, well, this car's not going to cut it. So I sold it, big mistake. And then essentially tried to find a car that was about to where it needed to be. So I went and picked up a S14 with like a pretty heavily built SR. Pretty, it was like a proven car from a guy out on the East Coast. And I picked that up and it lasted about 1.5 events before the motor pretty much gave up.
oh,
And then that was about the end of that, to where I was like, okay, I don't think I can afford this stuff. And after that, I went through a bunch of SRs in that car. It was kind of cursed for a while, it seemed like. And
that's
then
kind
that
of
car,
crazy that you went and got your pro license all the way out in Irwindale. And
yeah, that's what you had to do back then. You didn't
yeah,
get a pro license unless you went to uh, the Pro Am Nationals, which was in like Laughlin, and then it went to Irwindale.
holy
And
crap.
so, yeah, so that was it. I mean, back then that you had to do some serious like work to go get a pro license. And then in the next year they kind of started a lot more series were getting involved. Like MDU became a thing. There was some other um, series like out on the East Coast and whatnot, and you
Yeah.
could go do those, and you could win the series, your essentially your local series, and get a license that way, which was, I mean, it made it a lot more affordable in a way because like
Yeah.
going all the way out west was a freaking hit on a budget.
Oh yeah, because especially somebody coming from the Midwest or
Yeah,
almost
even the East
fairly
Coast
West
guys.
Coast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was an experience, you know. I met a lot of cool dudes. But that whole year was like traveling around and driving with mainly people that weren't really local, you know, because like the D1 thing, there were guys, a handful of guys from Texas, West Coast guys, Florida people, like East Coast people. So like those events, you got to hang out with dudes you don't normally get to. So like
Yeah,
that was pretty cool. It was a great experience.
yeah. So you had like the S14, and then you,
That was the
because I,
car that turned uh blue, and then that was probably around like 2012 when it went blue, and then that's when team braking came about.
so yeah, that's cool because I want to talk on that because you've been part of team. You're one of the initial people that start team braking, weren't you?
Yeah, yeah. It was
And that
an
was
idea of
you.
some bros
Yeah.
on a drunk night probably. So when that came about.
Yep. And so you had that car, and then braking started. When you guys started braking, was that when you guys came up with the blue and then the fluorescent yellow wheels?
That that was pretty much Derek Bainski. That that's his thing. He got his FD, and his FD was blue already. And then he the Graham Light luminous color, I think he I remember he got some wheels, had to get some powder coated, and that was the color to match the like the Graham Light color, I'm pretty sure. And then
Yeah, because I think the Graham lights, that was the color when they first came out.
yeah,
Or
yeah, because it's a stock color for like the 57Ds.
yeah,
And so that's how that pretty much came about. And then his car looked great. And then his car was already at that color before the braking thing came about. So like I was like, well, your car's working real good, so let's keep rolling with it. And that's how that all started, really. I
yeah.
mean,
How did you guys come up with the name breaking?
um, well, I know that was around the time when I kept breaking motors all the time. And he's working on an FD that he's never, first time having an FD, first time figuring out how to make one driftable. So like we were just going through shit all the time, and I think that's just
Kind of how it stuck.
yeah. And honestly, I don't think we didn't even like sit around and try and brainstorm. I think it was just like, sweet, that's it. Like, got it.
Easy.
Yeah,
Usually that's the best way that they come about because
yeah,
if you overthink it, it just sounds terrible.
yeah. Yeah, you end up with some pretty off the wall shit, is what you know. It
Yep.
seems like every day you see a new like team pop up, they're there one day and then gone the next. So
Yep. So you guys kind of started braking, and your car was the S14. Did you do? And then what was your next car after that?
um well, I used the S14 for a
Because you've had
while.
a lot of cars.
Yeah, I think essentially I was because I had the Skyline for quite some time. And
Yeah. How did you get into that Skyline? Because that's like, what was it, like one of the first R33s around here?
I mean, quite possibly, as far as I know, but I'm sure there's some tucked away that you don't know about that
Yeah,
just get out for cars and coffee, and that's about it. So,
yeah.
um,
So did
yeah, I
you
picked it
import
up.
that?
No, I picked it up from Fargo, North Dakota. Yeah,
That's a weird place.
yeah. I borrowed Mike Pollard's van and trailer when he was living in Cincinnati, and drove up in the middle of winter during like the gnarliest blizzard I've ever seen to uh, to make that deal happen. And I drove it as a daily for like almost 2 years, and then
Do they just not like have laws in Indiana?
we're pretty lax on it. We're pretty lax, so like we don't have emissions.
Yeah.
I had the S14 at the time, so I may have confused the plates on which car they were going on for a while, but that's essentially the same car. So I
Yeah.
at the time, I guess I just didn't care. Too stupid to care, I guess.
Yeah.
So, but I didn't want to like ruin it, so I didn't want to drift it. And then finally, after I kind of like I did like a turbo setup on it, and the car just kind of sat, and I was like, you know what? I want this. I got this car because I wanted it to be like a BN Sport R33. So I was like, it's time to just start drifting it and enjoy it.
Yeah.
So then I brought that into the picture, and um, I
Because
used
I
that.
honestly think like the R33 is like the most underrated like Skyline that anybody like doesn't think to import. Like they look so good. They're a little bit beefy, but like
Yeah,
with a good kit on them, they look amazing.
yeah. I saw that God Gambler car, the BN Sports like car
Yep.
from, there was a video on. It may still be on YouTube, but it was called like the title I think was something like awful drifting, and that's all it was. And it was like maybe like a 15-second clip of that car drifting, and I was like, holy shit, R33, look how long that damn thing is. Like, I want one of those, and I want it be in. So like, that's essentially what I was going for. I just loved it, and that's like what I thought a drift car should look like, essentially.
Yeah, like I've always had like an uncanny love for like the 33s because they're just something they're the one that nobody wants, and I've always been in love with the thing
Yeah,
that nobody
yeah,
wants.
they're definitely the most hated one, I'd say.
Yeah, but
But
God, I just wish I could afford one.
yeah,
Like
they're
they're starting to peak up in price now, which kind of sucks, but they at least we're getting them.
yeah, yeah. It'd be nice if they'd be more available so I could get back in eventually.
Yep. So, um, back to what you were driving back then, which was the S14, right?
Yeah, and then I sold that to a friend, um, Anthony, and then it kind of got a makeover. It ended up with like the kind of like NASCAR type style.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
went to
Which,
Supermade aero and like a sweet pearl marbleized like paint job with like
yeah,
some NASCAR styling to it.
like if like you nobody's ever seen this, the technique that goes into like doing that is like so crazy. Like
Yeah,
you, it's
it was
uh
hard to. It was kind of because I was there when we did that, um, and you spray like this beautiful paint on something, and then you just wad up a bunch of like plastic and just mash it. Put it all over
yeah.
the car, and it's like, oh, how is this gonna turn out?
But it turns out amazing because
Yeah, it
that
was. I
his
mean,
car looks so good,
yeah,
especially with like the Dale Earnhardt 3 on the side of it.
yeah, that car was really. It was kind of very different for the time, but it worked so well.
That is like the only car that I've ever seen with like a NASCAR livery that didn't get any hate.
Yeah, it was the execution on it was great. All the luminous and the blue, it all worked so
Yeah,
well together.
yeah,
And
and
I don't typically go for that type those kits, but like it worked great on that car somehow.
yeah, yeah. I think that car, like the look of it, was so just like perfect for what it
Yeah.
was. Um, so you've had that, then what do you get after that?
Um, as far as like after the R33,
Yeah.
well, I just got the FC, so that's like I haven't used it really yet. So that's my next endeavor, I guess, to start drifting the FC
Oh,
back in an FC.
yeah, the new blue one that you've just
Yeah, yeah.
built. Yeah, that one's pretty cool.
Yeah, I actually didn't build that.
Or you.
It was did a trade.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah, so I mean that car was pretty much done. I mean, I hadn't done much to it except throw my leftover like, braking parts and shit on it and been driving it a lot and that's about it.
Yeah,
Breaking some shit on it here and there already.
yeah, because you've had like preferable cars because you have what the FD,
Hmm.
and then you had. I think one of the best looking cars that you've had was your RX-8 when it was sitting on the R35 wheels. Like that
Oh
car
yeah.
looks so goddamn
Yeah,
good.
I don't even know if I really drove it with those wheels on it. I
I
sold it
remember
I
like
sold
seeing
it
a
with those
pickup and I
wheels
was
on
just
it.
like,
Yeah.
it
Yeah,
just
that
looked
was
so good on that car.
yeah, those wheels had like an insane stretch on them. I mean, it was like absurd because they were 20s, you know, so like to fit those on anything, you couldn't have a tire on them pretty much.
Yeah. What kit was on that car?
That was
Because
Vertex.
because
That was
that
a
was
Vertex
it was
kit.
a fuck. It made it look really aggressive. Usually, like most kits on RX-8s just kind of look like
Yeah, it
poop.
definitely like it brought all of the wild kind of question mark body lines of the RX-8 together and made it actually flow well.
Yeah. So and then now that you've kind of you're getting kind of because you've been out of like drifting for a little bit, and now you're kind of getting
Yeah,
back into it.
well, I kind of I didn't really take a break, but I was only hitting like one or two events a year,
Yeah.
and uh, and then over the last few years, I got kind of more involved in road racing stuff and other random hill climb stuff and whatnot. So
So what kind of road racing are you doing? Like HPDEs or
yeah, so like I've done a couple 24-hour lemons races, and
how are those?
they are way more serious and competitive than what I ever imagined.
Yeah, because what I've heard, there's like two factions when it comes to like the lemon stuff. There's like the guys that build this wacky like racer kind of bullshit, and
Yeah,
then there's the guys that they're out there to fucking win.
yeah, there's like a couple different classes they run all at the same time out there. And like, yeah, you got cars with like fucking Mickey Mouse bodies on them or something, you know, or whatever hanging off the car and stupid shit like that. But then there's some cars that are essentially like straight up race cars that are they're running lap times like pretty well prepared race cars. So
Yeah,
it's competitive. Like they're not messing around. Like they're running pit stops that are like super fast driver changes and I mean there's no time for messing around. Like there's always like in the Midwest there's a handful of dudes that are like always the top 5 and they are dead serious about it.
yeah, and like a lot of people think like lemons is like not that serious, but it's definitely serious. And another thing is it's a really good way to get
A
a lot
hell
of
of a lot
seat
of
time.
wheel to wheel. Yeah, a lot of wheel to wheel practice and seat time and like it's it's really sketchy kind of because the speed difference of like a lot of the different cars out there. So like you learn so much as far as like awareness and like what's around you and what's coming up and like you don't get that like anywhere else like cuz to go racing at like NASA or SCCA you got to go through like the whole HPD stuff and then like got to go to comp school before you can even go racing. And like
Yeah.
you can sign up for a lemons race and you're out there freaking pissing and shitting your pants almost because like you go out there and there's just like it's like chaos almost like especially for the first couple hours of those races it's insane.
Yeah, because I think people really don't give it as much credit as it should be.
They don't and like don't and also they lemons doesn't you know they do a good job of making it look like a circus instead of like you know a pretty serious form of racing like they show like all this circus type shit. And so everyone's like, wow, Lemons is such a fucking joke. Why would I want to go do that? Because like people kind of almost laugh at it.
Yeah,
And it's like, man, it's honestly pretty intense. Like there's some really good racing going on because there's so many different levels of
yeah,
cars. So like you're gonna go out there and you're gonna get in races like really close races like lap after lap with certain people while you're navigating like a fucking clown car you're passing, you know? So like
yeah,
I mean, it's definitely wild, and it's like
Yeah,
great
whether
learning
you're
experience.
like at the front, there's like a certain group of cars. Like front of the pack cars will be one thing, and then like mid pack will probably be another thing, and then in the back of the pack, more likely it's one of those clown cars.
Yeah, yeah,
And
because like there's all these kind of silly awards that they give out. Like, I mean, they do payouts to like the winners and stuff, and the people who win the bigger payouts are for the shittier slow cars. And the people who have like the fast cars that win overall, they get like no payout because it's like obviously you guys have some crazy built car that you guys have been like working on. So like they're kind of trying to push like, yo, we're trying to have cheap ass shit boxes
yeah,
going racing.
yeah, if you want to race like a legitimate race like that, go race champ car or something.
Yeah, yeah, I'd like to try some Champ Car because I think it's a little bit more serious to where the racing all around is you're not out there with like a car that has a Superman cape hanging off the fucking back of it or something,
Yeah.
like
I don't know. I've been hearing a lot of good things come from like the Grid Life for the what is it, Grid Life Touring Cup or what?
GLTC. Yeah,
Yeah, GLTC. Yeah.
yeah. Those
So
guys, it looks like a really fun class. Like it's kind of designed essentially, it seems like for like front wheel drive four cylinder cars.
yeah,
But it looks like, it's essentially like it's still like power to weight based for the most part. But
yeah.
there's multipliers and stuff for like certain things and like rear drive you get docked points and like six cylinder you get docked points and shit. So like it does
So
seem biased to front drive cars.
yeah. Well, what was the car that you were racing in Lemons?
I did I raced the Geo Metro, which was like it was a V6 Ford Taurus SHO in the rear of the car and twin turbo. So it
What?
was like, yeah, and it kind of had like the Apple Computers Kremer Porsche 935 like body on it. So it was pretty wild.
That is nuts.
Yeah,
Oh,
it was
I actually remember seeing that car. I didn't know that was a Ford SHO motor.
yeah, that's an SHO and the body or the chassis is originated from a Geo Metro.
So was it rear wheel drive?
Yeah, the car's rear engine, rear drive.
So it was like, oh, that must have been weird, like a rear engine G. It has to be like the weirdest like wheelbase to like rear wheel drive car ever.
It it was nothing. I mean, my first time driving it was literally at a driver change, me hopping in it and going out on track with
Oh.
fucking hundred of cars out there. So it was quite interesting. But I mean, it drove like I guess I'd imagine a rear engine car would. So it was definitely different than anything I was used to.
Did it like push pretty bad, or was it like
It kind
okay?
of it wanted to turn better and faster with throttle essentially. Like once you got turned in, like if you didn't have the throttle on, it'd want to understeer. But if you kind of did like a maintenance throttle, the thing just felt like it was just turning for you around the corner.
Huh?
So I mean, like almost like a motorcycle. Like it was like lean harder and floor it more, and you can turn the thing harder.
Kind of
So
have a
it's
little bit of slip angle to it.
I don't necessarily think I was doing much of that. It almost felt like rear steering in a way. It was
Huh?
wild.
Yeah, that sounds really weird. So I know I can see your other car that you drove in the background right now. Um, that was your 350Z or like HPDE and or were you in like SCCA stuff or yeah.
No, that that was essentially like a daily, and then I was like, I want to do some track days, and then more and more it kind of turned into like a full on track car. And my friend Cam Caldwell, was essentially we were both building ours around the same time, and so we kind of just kept like digging deeper and deeper into a dedicated track car, and now it's fully caged and ready to go. So I still got to go through comp school now. So I went through all the stuff through NASA and all their HPD stuff, which they require, and they got to like sign you off on everything. It's a lot of jumping through hoops and whatnot, but they do a good job of making sure like yahoos aren't just going out there crashing into people. So
Yeah, yeah, because
it's necessary in a way.
what was it? I've seen some photos from some of the like quote unquote track days that have just popped back up after
Yeah,
opening again, and like
yeah, I
four or
saw those
five cars that are crashed,
at
and oh,
Toronto at TMP. Yeah,
oh.
that would look like that looked interesting. I mean, I'd love to watch that from the sidelines.
So what kind of class are you aiming for with your car?
The car is it's gonna be running an ST4, which is it's just a power to weight basing essentially, and
Yeah,
I mean most all the classes that's pretty much what it's based around. So it's
yeah.
it essentially like I think it's 12-to-1 power to weight is what the four is, and then three is 10-to-1, I believe. So it's a stock motor essentially, and around a little over 3,000 pounds wet with a driver. So
Nice.
it's not like insane fast or anything.
Yeah, and it's still probably pretty good to drive, I'm
Yeah,
guessing.
it's definitely it's not like boring, you know. But then again, like I've raced a Honda Wago van at a Lemons race, and like that thing was a blast. So like, you know, it was I think it was something like 17 seconds slower around the track than what the Z does. But it's still, you know, you're out there just railing on it, so it's
Yeah.
still a blast, you know. But
What what do you find a little bit to be more? Obviously you kind of done both in drifting and road racing kind of stuff. What do you kind of prefer? Like, obviously it's like two different tastes, but
yeah, I'd like to be able to do both of them all the time, to be honest. But
yeah,
I think the racing right now has got me a little bit more. I think like the competitiveness, I think, is what's really like got me turned on to it.
yeah, it's a little more motivative to do better.
Yeah, like there's always like you're always chasing something down. So like, yeah, I mean, you could go out there by yourself and like you're gonna keep striving to like do better every freaking lap, you know, or
Yeah.
at least do like awesome each lap or like stay consistent or like work on something. So like that and like running running down, it's always fun to go to the track and run down like awesome cars that you shouldn't be keeping up with, you know, but so it's just figuring out how to keep your car together. Like that thing that on its own is like
Yeah,
it's
I recently was out. Yeah, I was down in St. Louis for work, and one of my friends from another podcast was down there driving, so I was like, "Yeah, come down and check it out just to see what it's like." And he was
they're a
just an
gateway or
ST,
something.
yeah, Gateway at an
Sweet.
SCCA event, and like the cars that just drive it are just like a weird hodgepodge of like everything. Like I saw like a like Gulf liveried Mustang like GT 350 out
Uh,
there with
what
like
what event was it?
um I want to say it was like a mid div event. I can't
Okay.
remember, but it was mid div time trials because he's a part of that.
Okay.
And he it was down there and like there was a Volkswagen Rabbit and like just a bunch of weird cars that you wouldn't expect and like a bunch of open wheels. And then like out of nowhere, like a GT4 RS down there driving. And I was just
Okay.
like, out of all the things, like why would these? And they're all in the same class, which was
Yeah.
really weird too.
Like there's so I've been like to Autobahn Country Club in Joliet, and like
Yeah,
you know there's some sick cars that you know members there have stored away that like you'll go out on track. Like I went to like some practice days with Cam because his work they got like a membership and so like the like hey, you got a free pass. Like you go out, there's dudes. There was like a DTM car out there, like running around with us,
Oh,
and it's like
Jesus.
holy shit, you know. And they got like a whole crew. They got a whole crew there, like crewing the car for just practicing, you know. And it's just like insane. Like there's like old, you know, you'll be cruising and all of a sudden there's like you're on track with a Ferrari 360 Cup car, you know, and like a bunch of like sick like GT3 Cup cars, and it's like
Yeah.
holy shit. Like I feel bad running around my piece of shit with these like crazy ass cars, you know?
And then you're like trying to like hurry up and give the point by and
Yeah, yeah,
just so you're not in their way.
right.
You kind of feel guilty sometimes.
Yeah, it's just like, man, I'm sure these dudes are real stoked to be racing around with a fucking 350Z.
Do you feel like it's weird like jumping like trying to get in that mindset of like driving um like regular grip driving versus like drifting?
Um,
Or is it like have a different it obviously has a different feel because you're trying to do two different things, because I've
yeah,
kind of experienced a couple times, and I've noticed like a couple times when like I'm wanting to turn in, I'm like chopping a little bit. Like that was my big thing when I noticed. I was like, oh, I'm gonna do it smooth and it's a little bit easier, because
yeah.
I noticed with drifting I do a lot of chopping with the wheel.
Um, well, at first, because I'm pretty fresh with it, you know, like I'm pretty new at the grip driving stuff, and like the first thing was like shuffling the wheel in corners,
Oh yeah,
like you know, just shuffling the wheel around instead of just keeping your hands on and
hands
doing
in one
this, and
spot.
like so, like even on like a slight turn, I'd be like, because like in drifting, you just let go and grab
Yeah,
and let go, and so like that, I had a GoPro in my car, and like I saw the footage, and I think I posted a video, and everyone's like, "Don't fucking move your hands, dipshit." And I'm like, "Holy shit! I didn't even realize I was doing that," you know.
yeah,
And
yeah.
and then I think after like a couple laps, like thinking about it, then it's just like you don't do
Just
it again. Yeah,
embedded. Yeah,
and it does help, because you always know where center is. So like when you start driving fast and you're like really pushing the car and you're trying to get on throttle on like exit and you might have a slight slide, like where center is, so you can just even more smooth come out of it. So it's definitely like just little shit like that you're like you think you know what you're doing and really you're fucking don't. So, but
It- yeah, and that's usually the worst when you post something like that, and then you realize like, oh, I was doing a bunch of shit wrong.
yeah, because you're all proud of yourself and you're like, yeah, I was totally ripping, like I mean, I remember my first time in the Z, like out there, I was like, I think like 146 is a Gingerman, which is like not that good at all. And
Yeah,
then like essentially over a year of just driving, like knocked almost 6 seconds off just from learning on how to drive the car right. And
yeah,
and it's all just like things that are just basics. It's like,
yeah.
oh yeah, I thought I knew what I was doing, but really like I had no fucking clue what I was doing.
Yeah, and that kind of happens with like the first event of the year when you start to get back into like with drifting at least is when you get back in, you start to realize like, oh, I need to get smooth again because like it just didn't remember it.
Yep. I mean, like,
Kind
it
of
seems
the
like every time I go back to like US Air, it's pretty tight and technical, and it's like, you could use the handbrake in every corner if you wanted to, or like you can never not use it at all,
yeah.
And so like I'll go out there and I'm like do a run and then like grabbing handbrake all the time, and it's like, dude, you don't need to do that, Just figure out what you're doing, and then like okay,
Yeah,
two runs later you're just driving without grabbing the handbrake almost. So it's
yeah,
definitely like it's a muscle memory thing, for sure.
yeah. That's definitely like one of the weird things when it comes to like the two different things is like muscle memory when it comes to tracks Wait, have you drove a track that is both you've drifted and raced
Yeah,
at?
Gingerman, I've drifted there and
Oh yeah.
raced there, and like when it's raining, like I'll drift this car like in the rain at the track days because like a lot of people, if they're gonna keep running, and the guys will stay out on track to do like the flag guys, like I'm gonna drive the whole fucking time.
Yeah.
So like in the rain, a lot of people
Oh yeah.
they may only have slicks, so they're like, well, we're out. So it's like me and last year, me and Mike Lee from Toge Factory, we were at an event together like at the end of the year, and it was downpouring for like hours, and so they just had the track open to all the groups. So like me and him were out there, I think for like 40 minutes straight, 45 minutes straight, just tandeming with each other in the rain. So like, through the whole like 7, 8, 9, and 10 there at Gingerman, we were just side by side tandeming, like we each almost ran out of gas because we were out there for so long and weren't paying attention.
Those those at Gingerbread are probably the best corners. I
They're
love
so
those
fun.
corners.
Yeah. And there's very difficult like grip driving. So
Yeah. Yeah, and that's surprisingly that's like a really fast track for grip driving, and it's kind of technical too.
yeah, it's like it's crazy because it's so flat and it's so fun still somehow. Like even though it's like super flat, and
Yeah.
a lot of it is like you can be fast there with a slow car because there's just you're almost always turning the wheel. So
Yeah.
like it's really it really levels the playing field for like a lot of different levels of cars. So it makes it pretty fun.
So, what are kind of like your favorite tracks for drifting, and then what are your uh, favorite tracks for like racing slash like grip driving?
I think still my favorite drift track would be English Town, E Town for sure. Like
Yeah.
that place is like designed for it. I mean, it's just all the stretches are like the right length for like drifting, between corners to where like you really get to kind of hammer on and
Yeah.
like the link stuff. So it's not like US Sair is fun. I love that place, but like,
Yeah.
a lot of times you're lifting a lot to transition the car because
Yeah.
the next corner is so close.
Hmm.
And like E-Town, like everything's like pretty well spaced apart, so like you really can like hammer on and stretch it and whatnot. And I love that place. I haven't had the best luck with my cars there, but I've been out there probably like 4 or 5 times, and I did D1 out there, which was a completely different track layout than normal. And then
Yeah.
I went out there for some East Coast bashes a few times, and it's so fun.
Yeah. And I know now that they're having like FD there now too, so that's gonna be a whole nother
Are they
thing.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, they're turning the drag strip into a drift track now.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I wonder how that's gonna
apparently
go.
apparently it's done. Like they were supposed to run it this year, but
No shit.
yeah, I think they're going to be still running it this year, but probably closer towards the end of the year. Or I haven't looked at their schedule because I really half the time don't care about FD. But
Yeah. I
when
try and
it,
watch it. It's just I don't know. I'm always out in this freaking garage like messing around. I Caleb lives like 2 doors down from me, so I normally we'll try and get together and watch it on Saturday, or
yeah,
Friday night or whatever for qualifying, but it's hard to keep up, really.
yeah, it is what it is. Like at least with how it has been lately, it's been a lot more entertaining since the last few years
Yeah.
versus like what it's been in the past.
I think last year we watched a decent amount of them, and I think there was some really good driving. Like it seems like there's on years and off years where like I don't know if the guys are kind of working through new car like chassis or setups or what, but like some years it seems like they're just off and the driving is not up to par. And then
Yeah,
like then they'll be like last year, like everything they were jamming. Like those guys were
yeah,
jamming last year.
yeah. And I was down in St. Louis for their St. Louis event, and like a lot of the drivers down there said they hated that track, but honestly, that track looked like so much fun because it was so like power on and then really tight to a door and
Yeah,
then
that
power
that is
on.
exciting. I watched I didn't get to watch the event live, but I ended up like watching them, skimming through like highlights and stuff, and it did look really fun. I still don't get why they didn't run the normal layout there because that seems like so much more of a it's awesome for one, and it's
Yeah,
like I think it's they said that because they couldn't get the crowd to like there's no positioning for like stands to view
yeah,
that part
be
of the track. But I mean, dude, they can set up stands. They need to because that
yeah.
that original layout is exciting, especially for high powered cars like that.
I like it's surprising like how big that track is. Like you don't think it's that big until you like because when I went to that mid div thing, I walked the infield because that's where the pits are for the HPD or whatever it was, the SCCA thing. Um, and like you walk down there and it's a fucking walk.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I haven't been there in quite a while. I think last time I was there would have been like a no star bash. So it's been a while, but yeah, that place is very large.
Yeah, I remember when No Star Bash went there. Like that place, and not to mention like that infield where people drift is like stupid fast
Oh
too.
yeah. Yeah, it's definitely pro level size. Like I think they should take advantage of that because they, man, all those circle tracks they drive are just they're lame. Like I honestly have no interest like in watching those events because the tracks are so lame and it's like, every one of those guys should be able to nail those tracks,
Yeah,
like a bank with a X and a like, a figure eight layout. It's like those dudes all should be able to do that shit with their eyes closed. So like it's just not entertaining to me. So
yeah,
I like that Seattle track. That's pretty cool. The high speed bank, and then it's got like a kind of technical infield. That's fun to watch. Long Beach is good, but like, what are the other good ones really? Like, the St.
yeah,
Louis one was pretty good because it was more than just an oval.
yeah,
But like, they should take advantage of that higher speed run.
yeah.
Texas, I think Texas is okay to watch. But man, they struggle with that track. They have a hell of a time with that track. That's I think it is
Yeah,
kind of fun watching that when you're kind of trying to see what these guys are doing and how they're struggling, and it's kind of interesting to because like those oval tracks, they're not difficult,
yeah,
and so like seeing them struggle with like a track, it's entertaining because it's like wow, it's cool to see them have to like strategize and stuff. So in Texas, they seem to really have a hard time.
yeah. So, what do you kind of think about like the drifting now with it when it comes to like the team stuff and then like obviously with I just had Edgar on and he was plugging the Drift League Street or
Drift Any Street League.
Drift Chimney Street League, yeah, and like his concept on it sounds so good and like so much fun and it's just like a new take on like the competition which I think drifting kind of needs because it's kind of become that like we've started to notice like the a lot of the like pro licensing stuff is kind of like starting to dry up and not many people are wanting to do it.
Yeah. Well, the guys that want to do it are kind of just going straight to Pro 2 essentially,
Yeah,
because they obviously already have the budget to go there, and it's
yeah, and
like
I think that's another big thing that like people don't really expect like oh you need this level of card just to like be around.
compete. Yeah,
Yeah,
and that's also that hasn't been good for drifting either because then there's no stair steps to like there's a process essentially, and there isn't that. It's like, are you going to be a pro? Well, then build a car and you go be pro. because like
Yeah.
there's no anything in between, and honestly, all like like the final bout type stuff, like those are the types of cars that I think a lot of people enjoy watching because they look cool, and especially guys that are also driving the hell out of the cars, like that's exciting. You want to see a cool looking car get the wheels driven off of it.
Yeah.
And like, but there isn't much for any competition with that stuff because it's mainly just like bashes in a way.
Yeah.
And
Because
so the
it's like,
street league thing I think is a good thing to try and get that back, you know, into the norm. Like Super D, they
yeah.
do competitions and like that's awesome because like those are the exciting looking cars, the cool cars, and they're getting to drive against each other, and it's like it makes it more exciting I think for everyone, especially like you get to go shred with your friends, and then at the same time like it's always fun to like make a competition out of stuff. So
Yeah.
and we don't have
And
that around here. Like Club FR, they used to have the Midwest. What the hell was it? It was called. It was like Midwest. It was a competition series that Club FR did. Why can I not think of what it's called? Midwest Cup. I think it was called Midwest Cup, and that was like a long time ago. But that was essentially Club FR's like competition series.
yeah.
And but they don't. They haven't been doing any comps as far as I know at the D
Sadly,
days.
no.
I think I may have heard that they did do like some type of like little competition at one of the D days recently.
Yeah. Mike Hennon's doing it, and he's doing. I completely forgot what the name of it is. Oh, I'm the worst.
That's sweet because I think I think a lot of guys do want to do that. Like
Yeah.
it is fun to do like the team tandem stuff, but like it's you got to throw something in the mix, because that I think that gets boring after a while. Like
Yeah. Definitely.
and it's always fun. Like, hey, bud, like it's fun shredding together. Let's go see which one of us can knock each other out. Like it's exciting. So,
Yeah. And yeah, with his event, he was doing it like during the lunch break, and like
uh,
it was just like a competition, like what it regular was, and I think he has it like posted on YouTube, and it was like really cool to see like regular people's like people that are attending the D Day like spend an
uh,
extra like $20, and they're able to go out and like do this little competition,
yeah, that's sweet.
and how he like posted it was like pretty cool.
Right on. I need to check that out.
Yeah, yeah, Hyperdrift, that's what it is.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so that was cool. What kind of like events are you kind of planning for this year?
Um,
If we ever get to go back out,
I'm
because
planning on doing the all of the Drift Indie Street League events, and
yeah,
and then essentially as many of the NASA races that I can afford to do, I guess. But
yeah. How's it been like dealing with this whole like coronavirus thing and like not?
um, I feel like I've been pretty lucky and
Yeah,
not been like affected too much by it because I've been at work essentially the whole time.
yeah, yeah.
And
Did
because
any of your like events that you had planned get pushed?
oh yeah, like all of them. So like I haven't been able to do any of that stuff really, but
Yeah,
as far as like, the normal parts of life and like I've been lucky because, I've still been able to work and get some income, So
yeah,
like, a lot of people haven't even had that. So like
yeah,
I feel lucky with that, which is I can't complain, Like
yeah,
I don't have to go to the racetrack, So like
yeah.
it's it's whatever.
I know.
I can wait.
Before this all started, like 2 weeks before the like lockdown happened, I had like back surgery and like I was
Oh
stuck.
shit.
Yeah.
That
So
makes
like
two of us.
yeah, and like I want to talk to you about that because God, I've never felt something so I had a microdiscectomy and like what they like I thought what it is like they went out and cut out the hernia in one of my lower discs, but
Uh-huh.
um what they didn't tell, like, because when I was under this perception that like you had back surgery and you're like, all right, go home, take some pain medication and like relax. They didn't tell me I had to get up every 30 minutes so I could walk around. And oh my God, that was the worst for at least 2 weeks.
Dude, I so mine was pretty bad before surgery. Like I was like, well, I can't do anything unless I get this fixed. And then I got it fixed, and I I walked out of the place. So like I had a disectomy, and then they also did, I forget whatever it's called, but they like ground the bones out and made room for the nerves. And well, I
Yeah.
don't, yeah. So like, but I walked out of there, and right away I could tell like it fixed the problem because I could feel like I didn't have like super numb feet, and I didn't
Yep.
have insane pains down my legs.
That's
Like I,
exactly what I
and so
had.
like I was like, cool, they fixed it. They fixed that. You know, my back's sore from where they cut the muscle and peeled it off the
Yeah.
side and whatnot. And then, they gave me like some mediocre. Then home, of course, my surgery was at like 4 in the afternoon, so like nervous all day until the fucking surgery. And then I get home and I'm like, wow, I'm gonna be able to go to work in like a week, And then they were like saying like you gotta wait like at least a month and to do anything really. And I was like, I got home feeling great. I'm like, yeah, right, I'll be at work in a week. And then like late that night, like the block started wearing off, and
Oh
like, dude,
yeah.
the pain was insane. Like I was like, okay, I think something might be wrong. Like they fucked something up actually, and I
Yeah.
just didn't realize because like they still had all the numbing shit in me. But like they gave me like muscle relaxers, and then I think it was like oxycodone or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
And if I took them, you know, it worked. Like it made me feel all warm inside, and I was like, cool, my back's not the pain, like the
Yeah.
after surgery pain wasn't like miserable, but then it'd wear off in like a half hour, and then it
Yeah.
says like you can only take them once every couple hours, and I'm like
Yeah.
miserable to where I was like, yo, I think something's actually fucking wrong with my back. Like they sewed something up wrong. And then like it was so miserable for like 3 days. I was legit like, I think something's wrong. And it was just like, I don't know, like trauma to the muscle and the shit they cut out. And then it like
Yeah.
finally, started wearing off. And then I was like, okay, fucking thank the hell out of this doctor that didn't actually
Yeah.
destroy my back.
I had the same exact thing happen to me. Like, oh, it's like you get done with the. I had my surgery in the morning, so I had the luxury of like waking up, going in, and it just holy crap. You get out of it. I was like, okay, the first day I was like, oh, I'm gonna relax, just watch TV, just sleep. No, you got to get up and do this and do that. Like, don't move and
Dude, I
and
couldn't get up. Like, I the next day after surgery, like I was like stuck, dude. I couldn't get up out of bed even. I was like
yeah,
trying to roll out of bed, and I was like literally like stuck. I was like, okay, this is real shitty.
yeah.
And like, luckily you know, from the pain pills and stuff, I didn't have to like take a shit for like 2 days
It's
because
always
like
the worst.
I
Yeah,
I wouldn't have been able to do it. Like I wouldn't have been able to
yeah.
like get down and get up like, or I would probably would have cried. So like I I was like, wow, I'm so glad to not have to take a shit for like this time because like I'd cry.
Yeah. Do you know what kind of like brought on that?
The pain
Or
after the surgery,
well,
or
no, the reason why your back was all fucked up.
oh yeah, I fucking blew it out, uh, bringing firewood into the shop.
Oh no
Cause I
shit.
yeah I heat the shop with wood burner, and
Oh yeah.
I had a big ass wheelbarrow, and there's like a step right over here,
Yeah.
and I have some pavers outside, and I was like pulling it backwards, and like the weight shifted just slightly, and just it like blew out and freaking collapsed, and my ears were ringing and shit, and I was like, oh boy. And
Yeah.
then it was on New Year's Day, and um I like came in the shop out of the snow. It was like freezing balls out, and I was like standing. I got stood up, and then I was like, I can't fucking move. Like
Yeah.
I couldn't like carry my feet to walk. And then finally, I was like, I gotta get the fuck in the house because it's freezing balls in the shop because I had just started to try to warm it up, and
Yeah.
I like walked to the house and I couldn't get up the one little step on the back patio. I was like stuck there, and I was like,
Yeah.
there's no one around, so I got to get the fuck in this house. And then finally, like, pulled myself into the house, and I went back like I had a winter coat on and like plopped onto my bed. And my mom was coming over to like hang out in the shop with me, and she like showed up like an hour or two later and was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, fucked my back up. I gotta rest it off." And she's like, "Do we need to go to the hospital?" And I'm like, "No, no." And then I
How
was like,
how many days were you hurting before you're like, I need to go see?
uh, she she made me. She took me. She came back that night, and I was still on my bed, just
Oh
laying
yeah.
there. And she was like, "We're going." And I'm like, "Mom, we're not going. It's New Year's Day. That place is gonna be packed full of fucking idiots that blew their hands off with fireworks or something. Like, it's gonna be miserable." And so like she drove me because I wasn't driving. There's no way.
Yeah.
And it was like more comfortable for me to stand. Like
Yeah.
sitting was brutal. So like I was just standing there, but like my legs were like shocking with pain. So like it was just super uncomfortable. And then like you get in there, your typical ER, and then they assume you're in there to try and get pain pills or some shit.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I know my shit blew out. And they're like, well, we got to take an X-ray. I'm like, I don't think we're not gonna get anywhere with an X-ray. I need an MRI. And they're like,
Yeah.
well, no one's here to do MRIs. And I'm like, let's get one scheduled or something. And then so did the X-ray, and then right away they're like, well, if you look here, like these two vertebrae are like way close together because you blew
Yeah.
out all
Compress
the
the discs.
yeah. So um, then MRI was like a week out, and I
Yep.
was like, shit. So then I went to the MRI, and then they're like, okay, another week is when the doctor can review it.
Yeah.
And
Like that was like the
it's
most.
like I
Oh,
how
it's the
much
most
fucking time
unnerving
off
stuff.
work? Yeah, and
Yeah.
so and my mom's driving me around, so I feel bad because she's like taking off work to take me driving around, and like I did the MRI, got back home, just got into the house, and they called me and were like, "We need you back in here now." And I'm
Yep.
like, I'm like, okay. Called my mom back up. She turns around, comes picks me up, and like I was pissed because getting in and out of the fucking car was miserable. So then
So
I'm
you're
like,
like you still had like pain after like a week.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
it was real
Yep.
severe. And
Yep.
and then so I we go back and they're like, yeah, we need to schedule surgery now. And I'm
Yep.
like, great. And then so but I mean it saved me like over a week of just waiting around. So
Oh
like
man, that was the hardest thing for me was when I went and did it because I blew it out when I was younger. Like I fucked my back up, and then through the years I just never like really worried about it. And then I started like BMX racing again, and then like one weekend I like compressed really hard, and my fucking leg like tensed up and went numb, and like just like you could feel like the most sharp pain through like the back of your calf, and then like in the front of your thigh. And I was like, oh no, something's fucked up.
yeah.
And then they're like, oh, when I started doing it, we went through physical therapy, and I was like, this shit ain't working. Like my fucking foot's still numb. And then I was like, what can we do? And then they're like when it happened, the last time it happened was the like 2 days before Christmas. I didn't get my surgery until like I think it was like February 3rd or 10th or
Oh,
something.
Jesus, that
So
sucks.
I was off. a whole month and a half before I had to get my fucking
That
surgery.
sucks. That was like pissing me off the most is like just sitting here with like the no income and I'm just
Yeah.
like that sucks so bad and it's just like you're just cooped up not doing shit.
Yep.
Like I've read a bunch of books and I never give myself time to read. So like I was like you just look out the window like a freaking sad puppy man just like what, like you feel like you should be doing so much shit and you're just
Yep.
stuck.
Yeah. So now your back is better.
Oh
Do you
yeah,
feel
it's
like
it's
it's
great.
100%?
Yeah, so like I messed it up on my bicycle as well like 2 years before, and
Yeah.
I damaged like some discs, like two of them, one down low because I got an MRI for that as well, and uh and then so when they told me like the part that I really screwed up, they're like, yeah, it looks like you have some old damages too, and I was like, shit, I was hoping it was like the same one. So like, but the other ones weren't worth fixing in surgery. So like,
Yeah.
there's still like some messed up shit in there.
Problematic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, it still aches and whatnot. But like, I'm crawling underneath cars all day and like crashing my bicycles and shit still. So like, it's
Oh,
gonna be like that. But like the overall like severity of it, like with the crazy like numbing foot and shocks down my legs and shit, is gone. So like, it's
yeah.
fit. They fixed that and like.
Yeah, that shit
Now
is no joke.
yeah,
Oh,
it was wild, like, and I'm pretty known for like getting hurt and just acting like nothing's wrong. Like I broke my collarbone clear in half like 5 years ago, and I didn't go to the hospital for over a week because I was like, no, I'm just being a pussy. And then like finally go in there, and the dude's like, are you fucking kidding me, dude? Like that is so haggard, and then there's not much that I didn't have to get surgery, luckily. So
yeah.
that's, but like they're like, dude, if that was the way it was broken, they're like, you could have done this. Any types of movement would just literally make that thing like shovel on top of itself, and
Jesus.
require surgery. I was like, fuck. So, well, yeah, I hate going to the doctor, and I'm just like, yeah, it'll wear off. Or,
Yeah.
it's not that big of a deal. Like I was at I broke my wrist when I was 16 racing at a NBL BMX race.
Yep.
I broke my wrist and I was like, it's just, I jammed it or something. And then I go back out and do another race and I'm like, that's brutal. And then I actually I almost like, I almost fainted and I was like, okay, something's wrong. And then like 3 days later, I was like, okay, this isn't getting better. So then when, they're like, yeah, you fucking broke it in like three spots and your thumb. And I'm like, fuck. So I just typically think I'm just being a sissy, but
Yeah, it's usually how you think of it until you actually have to like go and fucking deal with it. Then you
yep.
realize, maybe I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, now with like getting older, I guess, like I think if it hurts that bad, chances are it might be pretty fucked up.
Yeah. Well, speaking of getting older, you just recently got a Porsche. So now you're officially like the old man sipping the
Yeah,
Kool Aid.
dude. Um, yeah, it's an adult move, I guess.
So, what is it? Or I saw it and I was like, wow, you traded your Nismo for it,
No,
Nismo
no,
Z.
I still have the Nismo. It's for sale still. But
Oh,
no, I just I'd been saving for 9/11 for a while, and I was like, man, I'm getting really close. And I was like, I probably should just get rid of this Nismo and, you know, pick one up. And then I couldn't find one that I liked. Like there was quite a few that I was like really close to pulling the trigger, and I was just like, it's not quite what I'm looking for. And then finally, I was like, my friend Cam was like, he's quite involved with like Porsche stuff because of his
yeah,
job, and he was looking out for him for me, and he'd find some good deals, and then like I'd try it. He'd kind of do like it'd be on like Renlist, which is like a Porsche forum, and I wasn't a member, and then like things would just fall through, and then I was like, I'm gonna fucking make an account on there and just do my own dirty work, and I literally signed on there, found exactly what I was looking for, hit the guy up, and then next day went and got it. So
So how do you like it?
I
Like,
freaking love it.
what do you what's like your plans for it? Just to keep it kind of stock and just daily drive it, or
Uh, I I kind of want to make it a little racy looking, but I don't want to start tracking it quite yet. But I could see that happening eventually. But like the 350Z back here is like dialed in now, you know. So like
yeah,
I can't and I love it. It does so well, and I don't want to just be like, okay, time to build another track car. So
yeah.
I think the 911 will get like some goodies, and I want to feel it out, you know, like I know things are going to be more expensive when things need replaced. So like I kind of want to, you know, maybe get the
What
Nismo gone and then like just focus on staying on top of it and making sure it's like stays solid.
what is it? A 996?
Yeah, 996.
Yeah. Um. Yeah, and it's kind of weird. Like I've drove one, and it kind of has like it really does have like really easily you're able to like trail brake it or not yeah, trail braking on it, and it kind of likes to like swing out pretty well.
I think it seems so nimble for what like I never expected it to be as like nimble feeling as it is. Like it's like it seriously reminds me of like nimble like a Miata but with three times the grip.
Yeah,
Like nimble but really stable. And it's you know it's a 3.4. It's an early 996, so it's like 297 horsepower or something. Crank probably. And like it rips. It's way quicker than I expected. So like I was pretty impressed with that and it just sounds so good. It's got like a decent exhaust on it, and it just sounds like a race engine. I love it.
yeah. Like I don't know if it's just me getting older, but like a Porsche like sounds so good. The older I get, like it's just something to drive, like
Yeah,
just something
it's like
casual,
I'm a little intimidated of like the expenses of, you know,
like
things.
maintaining it or shit going
Yeah.
wrong.
So like I that's why I kind of want to like maybe unload some other cars and just so I can like know I can stay on top of it so I can because
Yeah,
like I like freaking having fun with these things and just like ripping them, you know? So like
yeah,
I want
like
to be able to rip that thing and not be like, I don't want to hurt it, you know?
yeah.
So
Well, good thing is like you have your own shop, which has your own lift. So if you need to do an engine out on it, like
yeah,
you're
yeah.
able
I
to do it
hopefully
because
it needs some work here and there, but I'm hoping to not have to do an engine out anytime
hopefully
soon.
it has a. I'm guessing it has a new IMS.
Uh, I don't think it's been done, but it's got a lot of miles on it. So if that
That's a
were to
good sign.
go, if that were to go, it would have already failed. So like I think
Yeah,
I might be in good shape there.
yeah, and
I just changed the oil and sent off the oil for tests. So like that should be a good tale, you know, on
what's
what's going
good?
on with it. You
Yeah,
know, like those things you can learn. Like those Porsches, they'll tell on you if they're fucking up. So.
yeah, yeah, and um, I just completely fucking brain farted. Jesus Christ. Anyway, um, those those things I think have gotten a bad rap for the IMS because from what I've heard, like a majority of them had like don't fail. It's just like certain ones that are at a
There's
certain
like dual
time.
rows and single rows and
Yeah, and I think it's kind of got a bad like they've got a bad rap for them and
yeah, they
like
do. I mean, it's like a 3% failure rate or something, so it's like
yeah,
but it's if it does fail, it's catastrophic to the whole motor. So like it's not just like, oh, just let it go bad and fix it. No, it's your whole shit is fucked.
yeah,
So,
and it's a $20,000 to $30,000 car, so
yeah,
like
so
as
and
being as old it
those
is.
engines are, you know, they're like it seems like you can find some for like 7, but like typically you're looking at like 10 grand for like a new motor. So
Yeah. That's like
I'm not trying to find out about that. Like,
that's a third of the car.
yeah, I'm not trying to figure that out. So
Yeah. Well,
hopefully these tests from the oil come back pretty good. And if that's the case, I'm gonna keep ripping it. And maybe if I find some time and want to like mess with it, I'll pull it apart and do the IMS bearing. But at the same time, it's like if I'm gonna get in there, I should probably refresh it. Since it's
yeah.
got.
So, do you got any plans for your other cars?
Not really right now. Mainly just keep the FC going as a drift car, and um the Z I got like some upgrades. Like I'm gonna do like 370Z rear subframe stuff, and essentially try and figure out like how to keep wheel bearings from going bad on the fucking thing. But
Yeah, because
other than
it's
that,
either that, or I see you changing the CV boots because
yeah, I figured
it's like
that
the
out.
bane
So
of your
yeah,
existence.
I got that taken care of now with the old straw trick to let them breathe.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's just mainly keep it maintained and just rip that thing. It's been such a good car.
yeah. Well, best of luck with like everything coming up whenever you're able to drive.
Yeah, it should be soon enough. I'm almost like, man, I should be more prepared, but I've been messing around with like, doing some customer projects here and there, and it's
Not
like,
to mention, you have like 10 projects at once
yeah,
usually.
it is kind of overwhelming at times, but I don't know. I can't leave shit alone.
Well, thanks for being on, and I won't take up any more of your time, man. But
Right on, man. Thanks
any,
for having me.
do you want to shout out anybody?
Yeah, man. Everyone who's been stuck, not being able to do anything, like hopefully I can see everyone out this year and get
Yeah,
around to some more drifty events. Like I know everyone's going crazy.
yeah, and it seems like if you're going to be going to an event, there ain't going to be any spectators. So,
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. We'll see. I don't know. It could, who knows?
but who knows with what's going on right now?
Yeah, dude,
They
it's
might not
scary.
care.
There's a lot of hell on earth going on right now. So,
Yeah, hopefully, like you're safe wherever you are.
yeah, it
Well,
seems
thanks,
to be, I mean, there's people acting dumb all
acting a
over the place,
fool.
but
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, thanks for being on, man.
right on. Thank
Been
you.
awesome. See you later.
Take it easy.